Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Welcome back to Rising Warriors, Rachael Kulei. I am Nabi Mia Dachana, woman that travels with the stars, and I'm in a world with the Northwest Band Shoshone Nation. I come from Chief Washkey on my mother's side, and then on my father's side, Nez Pierce, and come from my grandfather's Chief Joseph. And today I have my brother Wayne back with us, and we are going to be continuing our part 2 of the big people. We got cut off because of time, so we figured that we would be this would be good to do a part 2 and continue with some of the things that we wanted to do. And so we'll start with brother introducing himself, and then he's going to do a prayer for us, and then we'll go on from there. Welcome,
Yes,
brother.
hi. Oh, thank you. Yeah, yes, thank you, Rachel, for having me again. It's such an honor to be here and talking, talking about those beautiful and sacred things. My name is Wayne William Snellgrove, Soulteaux Tribe, Fishing Lake First Nation, Saskatchewan, Canada, Treaty 4 Territory, Nakaway people. My spirit name is Kanipawit Makwa, Standing Bear. And so let's begin with a having tobacco out there. Let's really begin with a good prayer. A little pinch goes a long way. Um, Creator, Great Spirit, Kitchibana 2, Megwitz, thank you. Goes on to me. I love you. We love you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for this opportunity. I am grateful for my last breath, and I'm hopeful for my next. We are here. We are here today, sitting in a sacred circle, and we come here in the good way, for we mean no harm in what we do. We ask strength and guidance and courage and wisdom, and we ask that we open up our ears and our hearts to all other sacred tribes and sacred wisdom. Today we were talking about the big people, and again we want to tell them directly we mean no harm in what we do, and that we come here in a good way to celebrate them, to celebrate their culture, to celebrate their everything, to celebrate their everything. So thank you, Creator, thank you, Great Spirit, for bringing us here in such a good and beautiful way. Oh, all right, good. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, oh, all right.
Okay, so last one I had a request because I was talking about the song
Yeah.
that I sing for offering when I go into the mountains. And so there was several sisters that asked if I could sing that song and share that song with you. And so I had to go and pray and ask, because I can't, some songs are sacred, and you have to ask permission to share those songs and those things. And so I prayed, and I gave offering and asked if I could share the song with you. And my answer is yes. So I can share this song with you. So when I go into the mountains, I always bring that tobacco, and I always give that offering to the mountains, and before I even step. So if I get out of my car, my truck, and I'm about to go into that sacred place, I offer that tobacco, and I put that tobacco on the ground, and I set my intention of why I'm there, my purpose, and you know I mean no harm, and I'm walking in a good way. These are my people, these are my relatives, this is where I come from. This is my intention of being here and walking here. And, so I really set that intention. But as I go further into the mountains, when I feel that presence of the big people around, that's when I will give up this song and this offering. Also, too, when I go and hold that space as a fire tender for those who are doing their visions in the mountains. I offer up this song as a protection because it's in a way it's letting that those spirits, those mystical creatures, those things that are unknown to most of the people, that I'm in this area, that this is my space, that we're in a sacred space. And so it's like this call of saying that this is where I'm at, this is who I am. But because of the Bigfoot or the big people, they when they're out there, you'll hear them call, and they'll do this call, and it's letting everything around them know that I'm here, this is my area, this is my territory. So it's in that sense too of saying that this is my territory, this is where I'm at in that sacred space that I'm holding for these people that are going on to their vision for those 4 days. So when you start it, you do four hoops, and they're the 4 calls of the big people. So it's the moo, 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 moo. And then you put that tobacco down. Then I have a clap stick here. You can also use a drum, but I have a clap stick, and so I'll sing this song for you. So. Yahweh, 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 oh. Yahweh, 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 oh. Yahweh, 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 oh. Yahweh, 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 oh. Yahweh, 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 oh. Yahweh, 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 oh. Yahweh, 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 oh. Yahweh, 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 oh. Yahweh, 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 oh. Yahweh, 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 oh. Yahweh, 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 oh. Yahweh, 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 oh. Yahweh, 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 oh. Now I'll do one more. I follow with this Dhamma Apawissande in Shoshone, is meaning the Creator bless me. So I won't sing the whole thing because it's long. So, but I'll sing part of it because this is what I also sing after this song. Dama Posende, 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 way oh hey, way oh hey oh, way oh hey. Hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, way, oh, hey, oh, way, oh, hey, oh, hey. Dama Posende, 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 way oh hey, hey oh hey oh, way oh hey.
Wow. Oh, beautiful.
Blessings to you all.
Beautiful. Thank you.
That is one of my songs that I sing as my offering, when I go to the mountain for those, for the big people. And I can always, when I sing those songs, I always can feel the energy, of their spirit, happy, and that, almost like they're dancing in that way, and being remembered.
Absolutely.
And those songs for them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so beautiful and so powerful. And offerings come in so many ways. And spirit, their spirits here. It's one of those dimensional, beautiful things. Once we sing it, that intention crosses all worlds, all dimensions, and they feel that, and then that's beautiful. Yeah, I felt that from here. Yeah. So it was really beautiful. I could feel their love and feel their presence. It's just, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good thing. I think we gotta get out of that kind of the like colonial narrative. Like you only hear the song if you're in the same room type thing, or the same ceremony, kind of thing. We gotta kind of expand our minds to say, hey, offerings, when we offer that tobacco, it goes everywhere, seen and unseen, and so that's beautiful. So thank you. I'm very, very honored.
You're welcome, Bruce.
Yeah.
So you got some more to share. Take it away.
Well, actually, I'm really open to a lot of questions and comments and concerns. And one of those overwhelming questions that I got was, if they're out there, why don't we see them? And why doesn't the government, there's a lot of government questions in there, you can imagine, of all forms, like that. So it's maybe we'll start there. And it's just well, let's start basic. We know as Indigenous that they're there. We know they're there. We feel them. Obviously, offerings and beautiful songs. Energetically, in case you missed the first one, energetically, They are, you know, and you know, every tribe has a little different understanding of you know what we're going on here. So this is
Mhm.
not about right or wrong. You know, Wayne doesn't believe what yeah this tribe believes, so it's like wrong. You know, but we have to
Uh-huh.
get away from that kind of colonial narrative. In general terms, it's you know the keepers of the forest type thing. And, you know,
Mhm.
interdimensional, you know, keepers of the forest. And I've had several, you know, run-ins in my short time up there with them. So, and what was interesting about that is I already knew they were there because I'm familiar with what we would call energy type thing. You know, energy has just particular feel. Like it's like a particular taste, you know, like apples taste different than oranges type thing. Yeah, you
Mhm.
know. So energetically, we already know what they're like when I first felt it, probably years and years ago, I didn't know what it was. It was big, dark, and scary. And
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
you know, we're humans, so you know, we always fall back to that, oh, a big, dark, and scary place. You know,
Uh-huh.
and then the more the elders we talk to the elders, they say, well, just sit with that. That's one of the main themes of grandfather told me. Just sit with that. You know, it doesn't have to be good or bad. It doesn't need to be a judgment. We don't have to place fear on it. You know, again, another colonial narrative is where we have to place fear on everything. You know, whereas you know, like the indigenous say, well, let's just sit with that. You know, we don't quite know what it is, but we can sit with that. You
Uh-huh.
know, and so I said, Tony, man, I got this thing going on. I don't know what it is. And he he understands big people, you know,
Mhm.
and he hasn't really been um, that's not really his people's focus. Although he knows they're there, he's from the Nanticoke Nation,
Mhm.
and so they're you know very aware, you know, Midwestern and mid Atlantic states.
Uh-huh.
So well, just kind of sit with it and you know pray about it. And just so I said, okay, I don't just kind of okay. So I'm just sitting there, kind of sitting there, and the more I prayed about it, the more I understood their energy and really what they were saying. And I'm just going to recap a story, you know, real quick.
Yep.
And it's one of those things. I could feel them there. I could feel that. I couldn't see them, but I could feel them all around, particularly in and around during ceremonies too. Because when they are part of our lineage and ancestry, and obviously another sacred circle too. So when we call our ancestors in, they're there too. So can remember just sitting there praying, you know, praying with my pipe. I just sitting
Mhm.
there praying with my pipe, just
Mhm.
praying, and you know, this went on for a little while, little while, and I couldn't really put a. It was a while, and then it was one night. I was sitting in my home in North Miami, and I was lying on my back, and I just woke up and eyes wide awake, like somebody had like kind of just like placed me there.
Uh,
And I just woke up and I looked up and I saw the biggest man I had ever seen before. We had 15-foot vaulted ceiling, and he was almost every foot of that, every inch of
yeah.
that 15 foot. And I said, hey, you know, and this is not like I'm speaking to you. It's more as we
It's
say, telepathically type
uh-huh.
thing. And yeah,
Uh-huh.
the colonial world uses telepathically. So I'm like, hey, and I knew energetically because I've been familiar with that before, put
Uh-huh.
myself around that energy, but now I can place that energy now with somebody with a huge, and that's when he told me that they prefer big people. So
Nah. Nah.
so yeah, so you know big people. So you know they said they were always around. They always had good things. That they're scared for us. They're scared for them. They're scared for their children. They're you know everything that we have, that they have. You know they're nervous too, and so um, I forget it was just during that conversation or another. Mount St. Helens. Do you
Yeah.
remember? Do you remember any stories about Bigfoot about Mount St. Helens? Because they're
Oh,
they're
that's where,
talking
so
to me
I
because
live,
you're closer
I,
there, right?
yeah, so I actually,
So
so right where I live,
yeah,
about a quarter mile down the street is this big
yeah.
gully that actually goes right up to Mount St. Helens. And it actually used to be the travel path of the hunting
That's
path
where
of,
they were. That's what.
Ye
Yes. Okay.
so
That's what they said.
so
Yep.
he
Okay. Right.
so he
Okay.
so so
That's
he'll
what they said.
come, you
Yep.
can hear him, and
Yep.
actually,
Yeah.
in the nighttime, he'll
Yeah.
actually, because we're right on the outskirts of the forest. And
Yeah.
so when we built our house, we were in the
Yeah.
middle of the forest, and then over
Right.
time, houses got put up around us. And so there
Mm,
used
right.
to
Right.
be all of these,
Right.
like we
Right.
used to have cougars, mountain lions, bears,
Right.
wolves,
Right.
all these different animals coming through.
Mm,
But over time, they've been chased out. And but big people,
mm,
I always feel
yeah.
him, and I'll
Mm,
actually hear
mm,
him at nighttime too,
mm,
and just a
mm,
quarter mile away. But when I'm at my
mm,
parents' house across the street, because they're on 10 acres, I'll actually
yeah.
feel him sometimes,
Mm,
standing in the trees, or standing
mm,
off, in a place where I can't see him. He's just kind of hiding there. But
yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I
Mm,
always
mm,
feel like
yeah.
I'm being protected and watched over. I don't feel,
Mm,
I don't feel
yeah.
any
Yeah.
threat or sense of anything like that. Um,
Right. Right.
so every time I go out into the mountains, I'm always, because
Right.
he's everywhere around here.
Mm,
And so I'm constantly, uh, have my
mm,
tobacco and my offerings.
mm,
And there's sometimes where
right.
I'm, been driving up around Mount St. Helens.
Yes.
And I'll be literally like, I
Yes.
can't get out of the car, but I'm
Right.
throwing tobacco out the window. You're like, I'm
Yeah.
leaving, I'm leaving. Like, I hear you. It's time to go. Here's the
Right.
tobacco.
Yeah.
So you just kind of like, sometimes you just end up throwing tobacco out the window because you can't stop on the roads because they're so windy. And
Yeah.
and
Right.
so it's
Right.
not
Right.
safe. But you're
Right.
like, okay, thank you. But
Right. Right.
you're like, here, like, I hear
Right.
you. I'm
Right.
going. I'm leaving. Like,
Right.
I'm getting out of here. So that's actually the last story that I shared, about my, previous wedding that I had. I was at Battleground Lake, and that's actually close to, Mount St. Helens. And I got
Yeah.
lost in those mountains. And but that encounter
Oh.
was when, my ex was with me, and I didn't realize, at that time, the spirit that he was walking with. And so
Mm,
my family had told me that, in our way, and what we've been told is, the big people, they'll come visit you 3 times if you're not living in a
mm,
good life, in a
mm.
good
Right.
path,
Right. Right.
and you're
Mm-hmm.
not living that on that red
Mm,
road.
right.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so, he'll come to
Mm-hmm.
you and warn you 2 times, but on the
Mm,
third time, he'll
yeah.
take your life. And so
Mm,
the first two encounters that I had with, with the big people, that I
yeah.
had a
Mm,
person close, and
mm,
it was with my ex-husband. And so
mm.
it was, now I see and I look back, it wasn't that he was after me, because I was like, what, I'm living my good life, I'm
Right.
doing what I'm
Right.
supposed to do.
Right.
I
Right.
had started, I was, just
Mm,
been brought into the Sundance circle. And so
mm,
I'm living I'm living the best I can. I'm like, why are you coming
mm,
after me? And
yeah.
I'm like looking, but
Yeah.
then I started looking. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
it's the person I'm walking with that he doesn't
Mm,
like. And so I
mm.
stopped going into the mountains with him. And so when I
All
stopped
right.
going into the mountains with my ex,
Didn't go alone.
that's, yes, then
Go alone.
everything, it was peaceful. And
Yeah.
I
Right.
didn't
Right.
feel
Right.
that, anymore. And
Right. Right.
so it happened, it happens all the time up here. And so every time I
Yeah.
go camping, even, like, you can hear them, walking around and things like that. And
Sure.
so
Right. Right.
I'm very,
Yeah.
picky too, and protective of my space when I go camping out here, because a lot of
Mhm.
people, they drink, and
Yeah.
or they'll be
Right.
partying in the mountains while, there's all these things around. And I'm like, I
Oh.
can't. I'm like, I can't even go into the mountains and go to these campgrounds anymore because I could those spirits and those, those that are mysterious that you do not see or you may feel or some of us see, they don't like that those spirits of the alcohol and the drugs that get brought into the forest and into their place. And so it starts like stirring up this energy. And so it's like I literally, I'll be sleeping there all night. Like, don't get me caught in the crossfire. Like, I'm like, I'm hearing good. like, please, like, don't take me down with them. I'm like, I'm not associated with them. Like, no, like, but then again, they know your spirit too. But at the same time, you also want to be protective of yourself. So if you know that, that's not a good place to be going and camping in, even though you're walking in that good way, should you really go be in that space where you're putting yourself to be vulnerable in, and whatever could happen with whatever those people are bringing and their energy, or go to someplace else, or go make your own campground and go be in your own secluded area so that you can put up those protections and then you're not interfering and crossing with these other entities or energies of those spirits that come with that. And so I remember, like, growing up when I did drink back in high school, going out to the mountains up here by Mount Hood, and I would be so freaked out at night. I would have to stay next to the fire. I would be building the fire. I'd literally sleep next to the fire. I wouldn't even really sleep in my tent. I would build the biggest fire I could, and I would just fire tend the whole night. So I ended up like fire tending and like keeping this fire as big as I could so I could see
for as long as I could have.
yes, I could see everything around me in this circle. And I did not leave that circle. I stayed in that circle.
Praying hard, yes.
But so then too, like there, well, this is a whole nother discussion too. But there's also with the big people, there's also little people too, and so there's that's a whole nother discussion that we'll have to talk on, because with there being big people, there's the yin and yang, and so there's always that balance, and so with that, there's also the little people, which I have many encounters with too, but that's another podcast.
Podcasts are piling up.
yes. I'll have a whole nother podcast of stories that we could go into with that one. And then but the most sightings or like feeling or like his presence and things too is also back at home on my family's land, back in actually I'm not supposed to say it because they don't want you to know where they are, so I'll just call it's Bottoms is the place that we call it back at home on my family's reservation. And down there it's like this marshland, and the water, it's glacier water, so you can actually go to the water still and drink straight from the water. So when I go home, I'll go there and I'll grab my jugs of water and I'll just go right into the water and just drink straight out of the water. It's so good. And but back in that land is this marsh and willows and things like that. And so I have there's lots of stories of like my grandma and my aunties seeing big people bathing down in the gully and bathing in the water and walking by. And I've even been there at nighttime. That's also where I had my first encounter where I saw the wolf go by, and then I heard him coming, and so I know. So every time I go out there, I'm like, but at the same time, I'm like, I know he's there. So so there was actually, it was after Standing Rock, I was on my way back from Standing Rock, and I was with one of my friends and my mom, but we ended up going down there to the Bottoms at nighttime, and we always get told never go down there to the bottoms at nighttime. You always hear these, that's where all of the mysterious things, that you hear come out at night. There's crybabies, there's deer woman, there's like all these things that that come out.
Things of the forest, right?
Things of the forest. And so I decided that because I trusted my friend I was with, and he was a Marine, and so I was like, all right, I was like, I'm like, let's go on an adventure right now. And he's like, let's do it. And so I was like, I was like, big people's around here. So he also has lots of encounters with big people around here, around in the Northwest too, where he's had them literally walking side by side with him through the mountains, and he couldn't see him. It was so dark, but he could feel him. And then even like the medicine man was like, that big people was walking through you with the mountains, and you didn't realize it, but you brushed right past him, and you were like right next to him, but he was walking with you through it, and protecting you through that space. And so we decided, I was like, okay, I told my mom and my aunties, I was like, we're gonna go walk down to bottoms. And they kind of looked at me and they're like, you're what? And I'm like, we're gonna go down to bottoms. And they're like, Rachel, like, after all these years of all these stories and all these things, like, you still want to go down there at nighttime? And I'm like, only this one time, because I have him with me. And so, so I was like, only this one time I'm gonna do it. And so we went down there, and we got down to the bridge, and I remember there's this bridge, and right on the other side of the bridge I could see this portal. And my friend, he was walking towards the edge of it, and then all of a sudden he was like almost on the line, and I was like, stop. And he stopped, and I was like, don't go any further. And so then he started retreating backwards. And then all of a sudden, so then I was like, okay, I already had given my tobacco. I had my first smoke, and like I had all my things. And so it wasn't like we were going to provoke anything. We just were wanting to walk in the space, and more of like I sang that song for the big people. So I gave that offering. And so you could actually, so we could feel his presence, but he didn't show himself to us or anything like that. So we just were in that space. But after I told him to retreat backwards, there was rocks that kept getting thrown at the bridge underneath us. And so, and so it was like all these rocks. And then I was like, oh, okay, it's time to turn around. It's time to go back. So I was like, okay, it's time to go back. So we turned around and started going backwards. And as we're walking, there's like this little incline uphill, and it comes up, and then there's a cow grade right on the top of it. And then it goes, and then it's just a straight long road. And so we're walking, and all of a sudden I see this light kind of by where my auntie's house is. And it's a car light coming at us. And all of a sudden, like, I'm like, oh, we got to get on the other side of the road. And I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. And so but we kept hearing this rustlings and stuff. And so I'm like, but you almost felt like somebody was actually pushing you off to the side of the road. And so it was like, we got pushed off to the side of the road into this bush. And then all of a sudden I'm like looking, and I'm waiting at the timing. And I'm like, but why watching the light, and I'm watching, and I'm like, okay, it's about to hit the cow grade. And I don't hear it hit the cow grade. The car disappears. It literally just disappeared. It was going 40 miles an hour, heading straight towards us, right into the bottoms, into this area. And when it got to the cow grade, you should have heard it go over it, but the whole car disappeared. And I told my auntie, and she was like, you saw it too? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, I've been seeing that car speed down the road every night for like for a while now. And right when it gets to the bottoms, it disappears.
Wow.
And so, and then you'll start hearing the big people. They'll start, making start making their call. And so it's like you started hearing these things. And so it's like, okay, we got back in the house, and we're like sitting there like, okay, I'm not going outside anymore. I'll just stay. So if I go outside at nighttime over there, I stay in the gated yard. I don't go
In the
outside of the
area.
gated yard. But you can hear them roaming around.
Yeah, you absolutely,
And they can, but it's a
absolutely,
feeling too. It's like that you were saying. It's like you feel it, and then I
no.
hear it. I'm like, oh, he's here,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you
It's,
know,
there's a fluctuation in almost every realm. Like they're like some sort of pressurized thing too. It's just kind of like weird. It's like I already know that they're there,
mm-hmm,
and that's okay. Yeah, that's okay.
mm-hmm.
Again, a lot of offerings. A lot of offerings.
Lot of
Okay.
freaks.
A
Uh-huh.
lot of offerings. Yeah. So,
I
just
think
have
that's
that
the other thing too is
real,
that people really don't understand is that's why you can't find them is because they travel through dimensions, and
right,
and that's
right, right,
their protection. And so
right.
actually, I was having dreams this last week, and I actually was because I heard stories of back when the
Mhm.
Europeans came of the big people coming through and taking some of my family and
Mhm. Yeah.
pulling them through those portals so that
Mm,
they could be taken into another sacred space.
mm,
And so I actually have been having dreams of my
mm,
family
mhm,
that they're kind of like the lost dogmen. If you've
mm,
seen that movie where
mhm. Yeah.
there's I think it's the Lakotas that are still like
Mhm,
living out in this sacred mountain, that they're still
mm.
living in the old ways
Right,
and
right,
um,
right,
have no touch of civilian life whatsoever. And
right.
so I keep getting told and hearing these
Yeah.
stories, through my family that there's some of my family that is actually out there, in this sacred space somewhere, that was pulled through these portals. And
Mhm.
so I kept
Right.
having these
Mm,
dreams because I'm like, okay, so
right.
what happened? Can I see? Can teach me, show me? These have been
Right.
lost,
Right.
so
Right. Right.
I want to know for myself.
Mm,
And so I kept having these dreams of
mm,
um well, one of them is I'm in my grandmother's body, and I have the baby in a pouch on my back, and I'm gathering all of these herbs and things in the mountains,
mm,
and all of a sudden I hear these clunking of the horses, but it's
mm,
actual like the metal. And so the sound in my mind, I'm hearing horses, but it's not my
mm,
horses. It's different
mm.
horse
Hmm.
clunking that I've never heard
Right.
before.
Right.
And so I'm like, and then I hear hide your baby now. And I go, okay. So I grab the baby and I hide him
Yeah.
underneath this bush. And I'm okay, be quiet. And I hear, we'll be here, we'll guard him and protect him. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I can see the ancestors standing around this
Mm,
bush protecting the
mhm,
baby.
mhm.
And I hear run. So I start running and I go run, and I hear her go right, go left, go this way, go that way. And
Right.
so I'm running away. And then all of a sudden I
Mm,
open up to this like a river, but it's a creek. So it's not too,
yeah.
you can walk, it's maybe like a foot deep.
Mhm.
And I go there and I stand there, and all of a sudden, for the first time, are the white people on the cavalry on their horses, and we're facing each other like this across the bank, and they
Mhm.
start coming, and I'm hearing that clunking, and it's the
Mm,
horseshoes that I'm hearing,
mm.
and
Wow. Okay. Right.
yeah,
Right.
so it was the
Right.
horseshoes that I was hearing, and the different sounds of the clunking, but I knew it was
Yeah.
horses, but it was a
Right.
different.
Right.
And so they get off the horse and they start coming at me. But I
Mm.
just stood there, and I knew they were going to try to rape me.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
just stood there and I stood my ground. And all of a sudden I could feel like this big presence behind me. And
Mm,
I can't, I
right.
thought it was a bear, but now
Mm,
that I was seeing and I went further into it, it was a big people standing
mm.
there behind me.
Right.
And
Right.
because the guys, they started to retreat backwards
Yeah.
and back onto their horses, and they got on their horses and then they left. But then when I
Mm,
turned around, nothing was there behind me.
right.
And so I ended up
Mm,
running back to the child, and I grabbed the baby. I go
mhm.
back into the camp, and I'm standing there and I'm telling the family that
Yeah.
some of us aren't going to be able to make it. So, and then I had like 17 children. And so I sent like the oldest ones, and it was sent them with the babies. And so there was like 7 of them that got sent of my grandmothers, and they started running to the mountains. But when there was like a group of them that ran to the mountains, and when they ran to the mountains, the Bib people were standing there, and there was this portal that opened, and they went through this portal, and then it closed behind them, and then they were protected. Meanwhile, everybody that was left at camp, they were all murdered, all women, all men, all children. The whole camp was burnt down. And so I saw my grandma telling her babies, you know, that you got to run, you got to survive, you're the last survivors of our people. If you don't make it, our people die. And so they kept going, and you know, she kept telling them it's so important that you make our people last, we survive, that you fight, and you don't let our bloodline die, and you protect our people, and you keep keep that sacredness. And so they went. And so the beautiful thing about this too is that my mother has also had similar visions of this without us even talking until we came together. And so that to me even more confirmed, you know, that what I was seeing and these visions I was receiving was, you know, they were true. And that, you know, that other relatives of mine too were also receiving these knowledges too as well. So it, you know, that it gives you that confirmation that you're not crazy and you're not making it up, or it's not just a dream, you know, that you really are hearing and seeing these things. And so it's like, so you see, and so it's like there's this sacredness, you know. So even with my family, you know, there's sacredness. So they know the spirit, they know us, they know the trauma that we as Indigenous have been going through, and you know, in that space. And so it's so important that, you know, we keep that connection, we keep honoring, we keep them, remembering them too. You know, especially in the times we are now. It's everybody's so closed-minded and so like into their phones and all this other stuff that we forget everything that's, you know, around us, and taking those. Yes, exactly.
That's sacred. That's sacred. You know, that's so beautiful that you know, the overlapping, intertwined sacred circles, you know, help protecting each other on a sacred plane. And you know, we don't, you know, like colonials don't really understand that, you know. You know, we're colonials are really busy, you know, creating that separation, like you're over there and we're over here, and then what's happening right here is where it's really just, you know, all connected, you know. And that's one of the things, you know, when I had that conversation, that was one of the messages that he relayed, was that you know, we look after each other type thing, you know. Okay, and it's very beautiful, just you know, and you know, especially like really seeing it and hearing it for the first time, because I didn't grow up like this. I grew up Indigenous, but I grew up in the colonial world, and so you know, this is not something I can take back to like my white family and say, hey, look, what do you think about this? It's kind of like, you know, like, you know, Wayne's. Okay, we got a drug test Wayne again. Wayne's back on the sauce.
Yeah, that's right. I'm like, I'm not gonna say anything to you. You'll just put me in the loony bin.
You know, but these are conversations that are in and around, you know, my Indigenous family, you know, and it's just you know, plus, you know, other things in the forest. You know, we're not the last greatest thing that's ever happened here on Earth. And you know, there's been overwhelming, you know, civilizations out there that have done some really beautiful, great things out there. You know, you know, we're just the latest wave of, you know, really what's happening out there. But they are, you know, speaking of that, they are, you know, they are very, very old people. They are much older than we are. They've been here longer than we are, and that's one of the other things that the message is that they've been protecting the earth through, and they're very good at what they do. They're very, very good. They're very skilled at what they do. Just because of their survival, they're here
Mm-hmm.
tells us that they're very good at what they do. Whereas we
Mm-hmm.
as humans, we have a lot to learn about when Mother Earth can be here whether we're here or not.
Or not.
That's Mother Earth. Like if we go, Mother Earth will still be here.
Yeah.
Whereas as the history of the big people, they've been here for millions of years
Thousands.
longer than we've
Yeah.
been here. They say Earth is like 4.5 billion years old. And so I don't want to get too crazy with that, but it's a long, long time. It's a
Mm-hmm.
long time. So I can't touch specifically that they've been here for that long, but they definitely have a skill to survive that I think that we as humans can really learn something, from, again, from the unseen,
Mm-hmm.
from their lessons, from what they do. And the fact is that they still have some sort of hope for humanity. Yeah, because they still understand and recognize that a lot of us, again, that's why we say that in every prayer. We mean no harm in what we do. It really works with that focused intention. Hey, look, man, just we mean no harm in what we do.
Uh-huh.
Whereas you know. I mean, they've been dealing with the invaders for a lot longer than we have, type of
Uh-huh.
thing.
Uh-huh.
And so I think it's something good to be good to again still honor love and create their existence, singing them songs and offering goes a long, long way to building good relations. And I think it's and I think it's important to note for anyone out there that it doesn't really matter if they're interdimensional. You know, they can come going, and I have direct experience with them.
Uh-huh.
Who shows up in the middle of North Miami, just standing there and having a beautiful conversation with that.
Uh-huh.
And so it doesn't matter where we are, we can still make that beautiful and most sacred connection. It's how big flame there. I
Yeah, that was a big one.
was hoping that was. I was hoping that was Sage. What's
No, I
going
would
on there?
say big
Big
flame.
people
No.
inviting Sage up for us. So yeah. So yeah, I think it's just one of those things that we really the conversation is big, it's broad, it's huge, and when you're out there, just really you know like maybe they're teaching us how to treat Mother Earth better. Maybe something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's their home. Maybe they're teaching us our home is their home.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're asking us to take a look at that. Maybe honoring. You know, we can't protect you, but you have to protect us too. So
Mm-hmm.
again, it's a full circle thing. Let's all creatures seen and unseen. They deserve our undivided prayers and our
Mm-hmm.
attention and focus. Maybe that's what they're teaching.
Uh,
As
See,
far
that
as
that makes sense because like with my
yeah,
grandmas and my aunties and what they
yeah,
would say, they would say
yeah,
that's what the teaching was always is, you walk in a good way, you be respectful, you don't throw your trash outside, you don't throw your
yeah.
trash out the window, you
Right,
respect Mother
right,
Earth and he won't come after
right,
you. So,
right.
it's always,
Yep,
but They instill, but it's funny because they instill it in a way like you're like, oh, I don't want big men to come after me, so I better be good. So it's like, but it's
Yeah,
kind of
right,
funny
right.
how the
Yeah,
elders, they sometimes they
yeah,
use that
yeah.
to those stories to instill that fear in a sense, but then at the same
Sure,
time,
right, right,
it's like,
right,
but it's in a good way. It's like, oh, if I'm not picking
right.
up after my trash, I'm gonna get in
Yeah,
trouble out here in, in the wilderness. Like, it just
right,
because
right, right,
the world doesn't see that I'm not
right.
throwing it in the trash can, it's on the ground. Everything else
Doesn't
in
mean
this dimension sees that I'm being disrespectful in this way. And
right,
so
right,
it's
right.
so it was that almost like that playful fear in a sense of, like you just said, of, big man's gonna get you if you're not being respectful to
Mm,
the
mm.
nature. And that's what
Right,
I would
right.
get told being grown up.
Yeah, right,
Be respectful. Big man won't come
right,
get you.
right, 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 right. Yeah, and what's I just thought of another question is, is Bigfoot or they said Bigfoot. It's so are they everywhere? Are they in North America? And I would say that they're on every continent. They're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If we're everywhere, they're everywhere. If there's life anywhere, they're there. Kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Out in Russia they call it the Yeti, and out in Florida they call it what's it called, swamp ape, or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Swamp ape.
Uh-huh. Swamp man.
Uh, swamp ape. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Swamp ape. Skunk man.
Yep.
Doing it. Down in Florida, and there's still sightings down there. As crowded as South Florida is, and the Everglades are, boats everywhere. There's still sightings out there. They're really protectors of what really needs to be protected.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's and I was thinking about this too as you were singing your song, how lonely it would be without them. What would this
Mm-hmm.
world be like without them? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like what it's kind of like akin to what would this world be like without songs? Kind of thing. Kind of like be that big empty kind of hollow space. Just kind
Yeah.
just like, or without offerings, it'd be very, very shallow. And
Uh-huh.
with those, with the big people there, it really gives a sense of depth and weight to 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 the forest itself, to Mother Earth itself, as absolute protectors of what really needs to be protected, and what we really need to be reminded of.
Uh-huh.
And again, you led that off in such a beautiful way, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no better way to lead it off than to sing a song of offering and love, and that's, I'm really sure that song uh, did not go unnoticed.
Mm-hmm.
Did not go unnoticed. So I'm feeling good things there. Feeling good
Yeah.
things. Sometimes we don't even know. We don't have to know what that good thing is, other than it's just a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Others just a good thing. I feel kind of Mormon fuzzies now, kind of thing. All right, well, that's, songs are good, prayers are good, love is
Uh-huh.
good, appreciation is good, even to those things that are seen, kind of in those unseen, kind of the shadow type realm is really, that's okay too, that's
Mm-hmm.
okay, and still honor them. What is your thoughts about, like, yeah, because you asked me to ask you too. Is
Uh-huh.
like the government type thing? Why would they? You know, what do you think
Try to
about
go after
them?
him. They need to
Yeah,
leave him
hunting them.
alone. They need
Yeah,
to leave him alone and respect him and respect his
yeah,
space in the forest and stop chasing after him. You're not going to find him.
yeah,
And he's just going to play tricks on you. Like,
yeah.
they actually went over to my
Yeah.
uncle. It was one of those Bigfoot
Who's that?
chasers or hunters stories, TV shows or
Yeah,
something
right,
like
right,
that.
right, right.
And they went to my uncle and tried
Yeah,
to get him to show him, where he was, and he goes, "Oh, it's over there." That's all he says, "Over there," and
yeah,
then
yeah.
it's like, "Over
Go
there,
this way.
over there, down there, and you'll go
Yeah,
down
yeah.
there." And he goes,
Right,
"That's
right, right,
that's
right.
that's all he would tell him. He wouldn't say any
Yeah,
more." And he's like,
right, right, right. I never
that's
tell.
not our
Never
thing."
tell them
And
where they are.
it's
Never
it's
tell where they are. Yeah,
disrespectful to come to us and say,
absolutely.
"Oh, because you have encounters with him and you're connected with
Yeah,
him,
right.
so that means that if I come with you, then I'm going to see him and I'm going to get to witness him." And
Right,
it
right,
does,
right.
it doesn't work like that. And
Doesn't
see,
work that
even
way.
that
Yeah.
intention right there, they feel that intention. So if you were to even go out there with that intention like that,
They wouldn't even
no,
be there.
he's not going to show up.
Right, right,
He won't.
right,
And then
right,
if anything, and if he does, I'll
right,
feel
right,
the presence
right,
of
right,
him
right,
not being happy.
right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right.
You'll
That
feel
would be
that, and you're
like
like, "Oh
me.
no."
That would be. I'd never be. Can you like So where does Rachel live? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
I don't know. And even
I
if
don't
I
know.
did know, I wouldn't tell you, type thing.
Exactly.
Just out of respect for someone else's home, and really, what an opportunity we get to protect somebody else's home, and someone else's home and family. They have families out there, big
Yeah.
families out there. Some of them
Mhm.
do, big family claims out there. So we have no business, no business, out there, with cameras or anything like that. You know,
Mm-mm.
you
Mm-mm.
know,
Mm-mm.
you
And
know.
if you do have
Even
that encounter,
yeah,
then
yeah,
that was meant to
right,
happen at that certain time, and there's
right,
reason for
right,
things, as we've been talking
right,
about. And
right,
so
right.
that if he's coming to you in a way, then
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
reason why he's coming to you. But if you're just
right.
out there seeking and chasing after him just because you want to witness and you want to
Just a
see
thrill
for your
seeker,
own
right?
self,
Thrill seeker.
because you have to
That's what
see,
beyond.
fact in front of you to believe something's real, you're
Yeah.
good. I'm just going to say good luck. And if you ever do get to see him chasing him like that, let me know,
Let me know,
let
and
me
I'll
know.
smudge your
Let
face.
me know how it did for you.
I'm gonna smudge your face when you get back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
um,
Yep.
oh,
Oh, we better wrap it up here. We have a
oh my
couple minutes
God! What
left.
time
It's
is it?
already been an
Wow!
hour almost. Oh my goodness.
Oh
Yeah.
my God! Wow!
We go for hours. So
Wow!
you guys,
Unbelievable!
Wayne and I have a lot of really good things, sacred topics that we have been
Yeah,
inspired and
yeah.
feel,
Oh,
that it's time to share and talk on some things. So stay tuned because we have more coming up. To talk about coming up. And so we'll be sharing those things and
mm,
talking in that
mm,
sacred circle with you.
mm,
And so I'm
mm,
excited for that moment, and stay
mm,
tuned, and we'll see
mm,
you
mm.
guys. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you, brother Us,
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Thank you.
And
Very much. Thank you.
we'll see you guys next week. Stay tuned.